Aloha Summer, Chapter 20. Here we go. Kalola slugged me on the arm as hard as she could. Some friend, I thought. I rubbed the sore spot. Hey, what did you do that for? She glared at me. For not telling me what your idea is. You made me wait all day in school. I couldn't think about lessons. Dirty trick. You should have told me this morning instead of making me wait. She doubled her fist again. I held my hands up and waved them back and forth. Now wait, just hold on, I sputtered. Okay, what it boils down to is that summer's here. Only one more week of school. Come summer, you're going to spend a bunch of time fishing with your grandfather. Only I can't go with you because I keep looking at you. You're a girl, and you keep looking at me. I'm a boy, right? So what's the one thing we have to do? She raised her fist. You tell me. I can't tell you. I got to show you. Come on. Ted Jacobs was throwing his baseball on the roof of his house. Over and over and over again, he'd throw it and wait for it to roll down. Most times he caught it. Sometimes he missed. It took an eternity for the baseball to finally go too high on the roof. The second it rolled over the peak of the house, I felt my muscles tense. I grabbed Kalola's hand. We were crouched like runners, fixing to start a race, and as soon as Ted walked around the house, I gave her hand a yank. We sprinted across Mr. Monroe's backyard, across our backyard, and leaped to the porch. I shoved Kalola inside, jumped in behind her, and slammed the door, just as Ted came back around his house. We stood there a moment, panting and catching our breath. Then I tugged on her hand. She stopped. This is your home? With a sneer, I glanced back at her. No, I'm just breaking into some stranger's house. I tugged her hand again. She frowned. I'm teasing, I said. Yes, it's my home. She followed me toward my room, only she kept stopping and asking what all the stuff was. At the rate we were going, we'd never get through the house because I had to stop and answer. It's a washing machine, a cook stove, an icebox. What? An icebox, I repeated, twice a week. When the pineapple barge comes back from Honolulu, this guy brings a big block of ice on his truck and... What is ice? She interrupted. I sighed. My shoulders slumped when I turned to glare at her. Look, if there's time when we get done, I'll show you. Now come on. Sunday night I had already sorted stuff and had it hidden in the corner of my closet. Kalola sat on the edge of the bed while I dug it out. Here, I said, stuffing her things into her hands. Put this on. I'll go in Mama's and Daddy's room and get mine on. Soon as we're dressed, we'll yell at each other and meet in the hall to see how it looks. She frowned at the pile of clothes in her hands. Why? Just do it, I ordered. I grabbed my stuff, closed the door behind me, and scurried down the hall. Kalola yelled before I quite had my jeans buttoned. I guess the old, discarded Levi's were a little tighter than the last time I wore them. I sucked in my stomach and squeezed the last 2 buttons into the buttonholes. When we met in the hall, I couldn't keep the smile off my face. With my baggy old jeans on and my work shirt with the undershirt beneath it, shoot, I couldn't even tell Kalola was a girl. We stood in front of my mirror. I smiled. Kalola just looked disgusted. What? I asked finally. She didn't answer. She only stood there, staring at our reflections in the mirror with that irritated expression on her face. What? I repeated. Kalola pulled the shirt tail out of her Levi's and unbuttoned the blue work shirt. Then she pulled it off and handed it to me. The old undershirt I had handed Kalola wasn't nearly as tight on her as the old undershirt I had on was tight on me. Still, put it back on. Why? Your undershirt. You're a girl. She shrugged. You are a boy. I frowned at my reflection. Finally, I held my hands out with the palms up. Why on earth? I'm a boy, I said, almost to myself. She nodded. I can still see boy under these clothes. I don't get it, I said helplessly. Kalola had the blue work shirt on. She buttoned the last 2 buttons, tucked the tail in, and pointed at the mirror. The blue work shirt was loose and floppy. My pants hung loose on her, too, and they were so long that they went clean past the end of her bare feet. I've got so many clothes on you can't see a girl. But you still look like boy. I probably will look. This is not working if one doesn't look and other does look. We both gotta not look, okay? I shrugged. Okay. Chapter 21. Makalai Pukuai laughed at us. He laughed so hard, I thought he was going to shake himself apart. Finally, he sat down on the sand and buried his face in his hands. I guess we did look kind of ridiculous. Kalola had on my blue work shirt with an undershirt underneath and Levi's. The pants were so loose on her, she had to hang on to a belt loop to keep them from falling off. The legs were so long, they ended a good... They ended a good 5 inches past the tips of her toes. I probably looked about the same in Daddy's old work shirt and his baggy Levi's. Fact was, I had to hold on to a belt loop to keep them from losing them. It was really disappointing. We spent Monday afternoon finding the right clothes and managed to get out of the house without Ted Jacobs or anyone seeing us. We talked about stuff on the rides to and from school on Tuesday, then brought our swimming outfits for Makalai Pukuai to approve of. We stood there glaring at him. Finally, when he seemed to catch his breath and lifted his face from his hands, Kalola pointed to me with her free hand. You didn't want us to look, so we would keep our eyes out for Tiger, she announced. Dressed like this, we won't look. The old man took a deep breath and struggled to his feet. You no look okay, he snorted. So many clothes get wet. You go straight to bottom of ocean. He stepped between us. Got to not look, but also got to swim. Wait here. In a moment, he came back from the house. In his hand, he carried a knife and a long piece of rope. He took the rope and cut it in half, handing a piece to each of us. First thing is keep pants up. We laced our strands of rope through our belt loops and tied them with a knot. With our hands free, we both put our fists on our hips and turned to glare at him. Feet need to kick water. Got to have free so can swim. When he had the bottoms of our Levi's cut off, he stepped back. Both okay with this? We nodded. Makalai smiled. Okay, both got feet. Both got ankles. Pull pants up to knees. When we did as we were told, he asked, Still okay? Okay, we nodded. He had us let go of our pants. He came back and cut them off just above the knees. Now pull up higher. He cut the bottoms of our Levi's off again, just below the pockets. Then he cut the sleeves off our shirts. We both stood there with our cut-off Levi's and sleeveless shirts. This looked like best we can do, he sighed. Still a lot of clothes, but we give it a try. It worked. I mean, it really worked. Not only did Kalola and I not look at each other, but I also found there was a whole different world under the ocean. We swam at the east side of Hulopo Bay. It was a good walk down the beach from the shack, but well worth it. There was a reef there and a high cliff on one side. Makalai sat above us on the rocks. Kalola told me if he blew the conch shell, we must get from the water. Wiki wiki. That meant really fast. He watched and we swam. There was a world beneath the waves that I'd never seen before, a world I'd never imagined, a wondrous, fascinating world. There were fish of every shape and size. Through the bamboo goggles, the colors were bright and crisp and clear as any rainbow in the sky. Yellow fish, blue fish, black ones with little splotches of red near their heads and yellow fans on their tails, just as Kalola had warned me. The coral was sharp. I didn't mean to, but I lashed onto it one time and came back up with a little cut on my palm, and things that looked like little black stickers in my fingers. I had to dig them out with my teeth. It hurt like the devil. Another thing I had to learn, a thing that was real hard, was not to stay down too long. I'd suck in a deep breath of air, and I'd get interested in all the things there were to see. All of a sudden, I'd realize I needed to breathe. Only when I'd look up, I was way the heck down there. A couple of times, I just barely made it to the surface before my lungs burst. Kalola swam with me. I'd point at stuff, and when we got back to the surface, she'd tell me what it was. Lots of things. Well, she didn't even know the names of herself. Others. Cup coral, she answered. They look like little yellow buttercups, only with feathers on the end. Not flowers, coral, tiny animals who live together and make the reef. How about the bright purple thing with the yellow around the edges? Flatworm. There are many on the reef, all different colors. She was right. Some flatworms were all one color. One looked like a tiger, mostly yellow with black tiger stripes on it. Another reminded me of a leopard. It was mostly black, but had yellow spots. The next time we surfaced, a whala, she answered when I pointed at the fish with the bold stripes of pink and blue. The yellow one? Solid yellow from the stem to stern. He's kind of cute. Laipala. The one what looks like a squirrel with them big black eyes? Ooh. One time, Kalola tapped me on the arm and pointed. I didn't see it at first, but she kept pointing. There was the weirdest looking fish I'd ever seen in my life. It was kind of an orangish brown with a few white stripes. It blended in perfectly with the rocks where it rested on the bottom. The thing had these long spines or fins sticking out all around. Like I said, weird. When we got back to the surface for air, Kalola told me it was a lionfish. She warned me to be careful and never grab one or step on it. The spines were sharp and very poisonous. Tomorrow, last day of school? Makalai Pukuai asked when we finally came back to the beach. Came back to the beach. With smiles that stretched clear across our faces, Kalola and I nodded. Makalai smiled back. Tomorrow we go to Pukas, and find bait. Kioni Priddle, you spend night, so we get early start next morning. Go catch fish. I was so excited I wanted to tell the old man every single thing I had seen. I wanted to ask him the names of stuff Kalola didn't know. I wanted to tell him how wonderful and exciting it was under the ocean. But when he said, spend the night, all the excitement just sort of whooshed out of me. How in the world could I ever talk Mama and Daddy into letting me spend the night? Let's see, that is the end of 22. or I'm sorry, the end of 21. I will stop there because I think there's, actually, let's see, how long is 22? Yep, I'll stop there.